All right, we are now recording the remainder of the session. All of you, you are the recording. You will have to tell everybody all the wisdom. All right. Oh man, okay. So coming out, I'm just gonna repeat this last thought one more time. It's a good thing if your boss tells you they're a perfectionist. It's a good thing if someone tells you that they judge you in a certain way. You're young, you don't know my industry, you're not capable yet, you have not been in the workforce long enough. That's a good thing because they're telling you how they're choosing to judge you. And it's a choice, by the way, because they said it that way. And if you understand, and also if they call themselves a perfectionist, that's also them acknowledging that they have their own tendencies. If you understand how they're seeing you, if you understand how they see themselves, and you see them as a person with a habit or with a perspective, rather than a fixed, unchangeable whatever, then you can relate to them, you can understand them, you can empathize with them. If you can empathize with them, then you understand them much better, you understand their situation. If you understand their situation, then you can influence them. And if you can influence them, then you're doing your job here as data scientists, right? So ultimately, it's really helpful to not see them as stuck and unchangeable. That doesn't mean it's going to be hard to influence them. They might be hard to influence. They might have habits of being stubborn, right? They might have habits of not listening to other people, right? So I'm not going to call them stubborn. I'm going to say they have a habit, right? So as long as you can try to relate to them, you're going to have more success in getting to work with them and collaborate with them. And then you just got to get really specific. Hey, boss, when you check this, I wonder if it's helping you. And focus on the value for them, right? Again, focus on value. Are you getting what you want when you focus on all these minute details? If they say no, then great. Then you work with them to change it. If they say yes, then great. You work on accepting that this is helpful for them, right? If you want something different, you ask yourself a different question. Do I want to work somewhere else, right? And that's a hard question to ask. But that you have to start asking yourself that question. If they're getting value, unfortunately, in most of these organizations, if they're getting value, they're not going to really care if you like it or not. Now, if you work for me, if I ever hire one of you, I don't operate that way, but many bosses do. And it's important for you to be able to understand that. Not the way it should be, the way it is. I feel like that's my tagline for the session. Okay, let's see. What was the question, David, that could get you fired?
Okay, I'm referring to the question that you've mentioned when you go and ask your boss, does this and this help you?
Haha, yeah. So that's really the way you should think about it in your head. The way you should really ask that, the thing you really want to say, I appreciate you saying that. That's a good point. Don't say it that way. That's a good point. The way you want to really phrase it will be something like, you know, I'm happy to do this, boss. I'm just sort of confused why it's helpful. Can you help me understand so I can do it right? I'm worried that I'm going to do it wrong, right? And it's very possible if you ask it in the right way, they'll be like, you know what? I changed my mind. Don't do it, right? And then you just keep track of that. Remember that. So the next time then it comes up that they start behaving the same way, that habit comes up again, you say, hey, I feel like this is, you know, it's sort of like that internet question we were answering before. I feel confused on where the value is, or like what you're, you know, why this is going to be helpful. Can you help me understand again? And if you make a habit of pointing out the habit in a way that they're willing to hear it, right? Because you don't want to offend them. As you said, they'll fire you if you offend them. If you can ask it in a way they're willing to hear it, then you will get them to start questioning their own habit, right? So this is all the subtle art of influence. And there's a lot. I teach a full 10-week course on this. So, and we do 2 hours a session, and I prepare 10 hours for each of those sessions. So you're all welcome to those, but they're at 6 p.m. my time. They're donation-based, by the way. So people are welcome to pay whatever they can afford. So you're welcome to come to those, but they're 6 p.m. my time, which I think is like the middle of the night for most of you. But that said, I'm going to share with you tips on how to practice empathy. I'm gonna look at my calendar. I think I probably actually could go longer if people want that, and then maybe we can just pause and let people who want to go. Okay, yeah, let's do this. We've got a lot of questions, and after today, I'm gonna switch into mostly trying to get you hired mode, where I'm only gonna be focusing on your interviews and your applications and your resumes. So to me, this is sort of our last day to like just talk about important, meaningful things. Next week and onwards, it's really just, I'm focused on getting you to apply to companies and jobs. So here's what I want to do. I'm thinking, let's take a 10-minute break this time. And then I'm going to go for another hour. Whoever wants to stay with me for the next hour, you're welcome to stay. Man, Stephanie, you're the best. You just got excited. I could see that. That's a great. So whoever wants to stay for the following hour, you're welcome to. Don't want to stay, no worries. Oh, break rooms, Ada. Yes, thank you for reminding me. Let's do this actually. Why don't we make it a 15-minute break? And it'll be a 15-minute break for me, and for you, 15 minutes of hanging out here in break rooms. Or you can choose to just take a break altogether. You decide. And you just message me if you don't want to be in the break room. Does that work for everybody?
And what about the 1 hour?
And then we'll go for 1 hour after that.
Yeah.
Appreciate you all. Really appreciate that. And then for those of you who want to leave now or want to leave after the break, you're more than welcome to. And we are now recording. So this will be recorded. All right. Does anyone have any problems with that? All right. All right, cool. Let's see. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you a question for your break room. Can I get a thumbs up? How many people did the homework from last week? Tried to influence someone using data or data science skill? Okay, a few people tried. Wonderful. So how many people, and it's not a problem at all. I just want to hear, honestly, if you had a hard time doing this exercise. Give me a thumbs up if you had a hard time doing this exercise. You weren't sure if you wanted to do it, or it was just hard to figure out how to do it. Just a couple? Okay, we got a few? Okay, great. So here's my question for you. What makes it hard to influence people with, what made it hard to influence people with data? I'll type this out. Made it hard to influence people with data this week. And then how likely is it to be a problem? How likely are the same problems to come up in the workplace? Oh, thanks for answering in the chat, Wamuyu. I actually am going to give you these two questions for your conversation with your breakout room partner. So I want you and your breakout room partner to have that conversation. What made it hard to influence people with data this week, and how likely is it that the problems you had trying to influence people here are going to come up when you try to do it as a data science professional, a data scientist professionally? Everyone understand the questions I'm asking you? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. All right. Send me a message, or there's a help button that'll appear on your screen when I create the breakout rooms, when you're in a breakout room. If you want to leave the room or you have any issues, just hit the help button. And I will see you in 15 minutes. Have fun. Oh, wait, I broke this. There you go. Now have fun. And David, I'm going to be taking my break during this time. So we're going to do the hangout next time. Does that sound good for you?
It's okay, no problem. No
Okay.
problem. You promise. You promise.
Yeah, and keep me to it. Remind me next time. Don't let me forget, okay?
I will.
Okay, great. All right, enjoy. Talk to you later. Connect. Let's, yeah, does anyone want to share what they talked about in the breakout room?
I nominate Ada.
Okay, it's raining where I'm at, so probably there'll be some background noise, but generally we talked about, my partner was Kevin. So concerning how it is hard to influence people with data, he said something, okay, all this was his idea. So he said he had an earlier session with Idris. And you guys talked about how lacking the capacity to manipulate the data can render your analysis useless. And then he said also lacking the willingness to do the work. That's it.
Great. Kevin, do you want to add anything to that?
Okay, let me get out of the sitting room for a minute. There's some noise. Oh, Jesus, more noise. So the thing was, now the session that you had earlier about capacity and willingness to do the challenge, or rather to do the assignment. And in the case that you're talking about, you said the capacity or the will. Let me start with the willingness first. The willingness was when you either don't, as Idris was talking about, I was talking before about, where you don't see really the importance, in air quotes, the importance to do the task, or you don't see the value in that particular task. And if you don't see the value in that particular task, you'll probably lack the willingness or the motivation to even
Kevin cut out for me. Is that true for everyone else? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I saw he was moving around, so it might be an internet thing.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear
go
me?
ahead. Yep.
Yeah. Did you hear about the willingness?
Half of it. Why don't you talk about willingness one more time?
Willingness was, or what I was saying about willingness was, you don't see the importance of a particular task, or you don't see the value that a certain task adds to the decision making or the problem you have at hand. So if you don't see the importance of the analysis you're supposed to do, you'll be less likely, or you'll be less willing to do that particular task than if you saw that task as something crucial to the decision-making process. The other one was about the capacity. The capacity was in terms of whether you don't have the necessary data to carry out that particular analysis, or you don't have the particular tools to carry out that analysis. And without the particular tools or the data, you cannot really perform the specified task.
Beautiful, well articulated. So I want you all to remember these two concepts of capacity and willingness. Often in some of the work I do, we call it wholehearted willingness. The combination of both of these. The idea is ultimately that often things don't happen for really just these two reasons. So if you understand those two concepts, you will understand why people make decisions the way they make them. You'll understand what actions are taken. You'll understand why people don't follow through on the decisions they make. That's going to be a big part of being a data scientist, is helping organizations see that they made a commitment to do something and they are only 10% of the way there, only 50% of the way there. And maybe they said they would get it done this year, and 2 years later, they still are only halfway there, right? So big part of data science is helping companies understand what's happening with the decisions they've made, not just helping them make decisions. The term here is scorecards and metrics. This is what you'll look out for. I encourage you all to do some research. Just Google these ideas. But you can think of report cards that you get in school. Do you get report cards there in the different places you're in? You all get like report cards and grades and stuff like this. In India, they do this thing, they call them, what's that?
Transcripts.
Transcripts, yeah. And in India, they do this, they do like a different system than transcripts than we do in the US. So, okay, cool. So, but you can just think about those kinds of transcripts you get. Do most of you get transcripts with like A, B, C, that kind of thing? Letter grades? Some of you don't? But everyone understands how this works, right? Does anyone have any confusion about how this works? Okay. Companies, a lot of companies are looking for report cards. They're looking for their data scientists to create a report card, not for the company as a whole, but for different initiatives, for different, sometimes for different managers. That's one of the kinds of big types of projects that is very common for data scientists to work on. Again, not that sophisticated generally from a statistical perspective, but incredibly valuable because it can influence the way people think, right? They can look at their report card and say, if you got a B in maths and you got an F in English, where are you going to spend your time, right? So it's the same kind of thing with the corporation. If they can see on the report card that marketing is doing well and operations is doing poorly, the CEO will focus on operations. So, okay, capacity and willingness, good things to think about. Somebody had asked the question, I want to come back to this question that somebody had asked about how to influence people when you're early in your career. Does anyone else want to share about what they talked about, or should I jump back to that question?
I can go now, I think.
Go ahead.
So everything's clear, right? Then there's no background noise, right?
Yes, no? Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I was with David. We had a really fun and interesting talk. So he told me about how he influenced his little friend, his younger friend, to take Python courses based on data, based on how available it is, how important it is, and stuff. And he actually influenced her. And I actually didn't influence anyone.
last week. So I told him what just happened last week. So last week I was interviewing for a training and a job. So yeah, what they did is like they were selecting students, and they were selecting students from our campus. Our campus, most of us were from our campus, and I think that's because the campus has like a good reputation, right? So the profile of the the people that graduated from that campus is actually better, and they have contributed a lot to for the country. So they were selecting it based on that. They were like, that's I think what most recruiters do most of the time. So what I understood is that they were using previous data to just make these decisions. And what was hard and what makes it hard on the workplace, what makes hard to influence someone is what we talked about, is people when they don't want to hear you or when they don't trust you, people say like, people think they want to think that they don't actually think, but they want to think that the future is unpredictable. They're not certain. So they're like, they have that, they tell themselves that it's not certain and that it is unpredictable. So that is what we said makes it hard. And we also like try to bring some solution to it. The first thing is I think what he said, the first thing is being good at storytelling. You have to be good at storytelling. Like you have to actually persuade them. But in order to do that, no one is going to hear everyone's voice, right? So in order for your voice to be heard, you have to actually do an actual work. It could be like doing a sample, like you have to show them your potential. You have to show them what you can do so that they can trust you. That's what we actually talked about. So yeah, it was really fun talking with David.
Wonderful. Now I see this is good. I'm glad you all encouraged me to do the breakout sessions. It sounds like you had very good conversations. So I want to emphasize, David, that point that you made about storytelling. That's a huge point. Whenever I'm at a data science conference, people always bring it up. I can't tell you, I've never been to a data science conference where at least 3 speakers, it's a minimum 3 speakers will talk about the importance of storytelling. Become good at storytelling. Keep practicing influencing people. I want to also talk about the recruitment piece. Rahel, thank you for sharing all this. This is great. I hope it's okay. I'm just going to sort of riff off of this. IBM did not recruit at my campus. I went to go and work at IBM's research labs, which was one of the most prestigious jobs you could get out of school at IBM. And I interned there after one of my internships. And I was able to get the job because I met an alumni at my school, who worked at IBM. I don't know how, they had gone somewhere else and they eventually went to IBM. And they came to the campus to mentor people, sort of in the same kind of format we're doing here. Just he did it on stage with 500 people. And I talked to him at the end of the event, got his business card, followed up with him, had another conversation. So this goes back to sort of Kevin's point. When Kevin asked about how do we gain influence in an organization, building relationships is a big part of it. And you build relationships, so all of you can be building relationships with each other. So out of this group, there's definitely going to be some people who get jobs before other people. And they might learn about other jobs, right? Maybe in their own company or through their boss. If you are building relationships with each other, you will hear about the opportunities that the person who just got a job knows about, right? If you're not building those relationships as well, it might take you a long time to hear about that information. That's obvious, right? That makes sense to everybody? Same thing happens in these companies. Same thing happens with your alumni network. In your universities, find out who is coming to the campus from different companies. Target the technology companies. Try to build those relationships. So I built a relationship with this one fellow. His name was Neil Sahota. Neil worked at IBM. And then I followed up with him. So we'll do a whole focus actually on this. Let me just name it. We'll just do a focus on networking and relationship building, because that's going to be a key for you. I hope that 10 Academy can get all of you enough interviews that you get a job. But if you really want to make sure that you're going to get a job as a data scientist, I want you to be, I call it pavement pounding. You need to be out there selling yourself. That is what recruiting is. That is what trying to apply is you are selling your capabilities, your willingness to do work. It is sales. And I'm going to teach you sales techniques to go and get people to hire you as a data scientist. Yeah, right. Yes. At least one person's excited to be in sales. So we're going to do networking and sales at some point. Actually, sorry, just networking is one. I'll probably do a sales focus maybe next time. Okay. So the point I wanted to make though is IBM did not recruit from my campus, but I got my first job out of college was with IBM. So it is possible. But to Rahel's point, it was really difficult. They had their list of colleges that they went to recruit from. And once I was on the inside, I talked to them about why didn't you recruit for me? Why was it so hard for me? And I helped IBM decide to start recruiting at my campus. And that took a lot of work to do. And I actually personally invited IBM, Apple, Microsoft, and Google. None of them used to hire from my campus until I got them to come to my campus. So I'm going to teach you what it takes. Yeah, I see some of you shaking your heads. It takes, this stuff is work. But I've done this a lot. I did this when I was in college, and I've done this in my career. So I feel confident to help you get hired. And it's work. And we're going to get you there. I was at UC Irvine, UCI. It's a sister campus of UCLA and of Berkeley. But very few people know it. Yeah. So one of the tricks, David, about them hiring is that we could probably actually reach out to people at IBM and stuff. It'd be interesting to see if they'd be interested. I'm curious, by the way, can I get an understanding? Who here does not live in Kenya and would be able to move to Nairobi? Is people
Come again?
So I assume if you live in Kenya, you would be comfortable moving to Nairobi for a job. That seems right? And then and I know many of you don't live in Kenya. So for the people who do not live in Kenya, are you willing to move to Nairobi for a job?
And are you willing?
I am a Kenyan. Come on. I think like 90% of us were Kenyans in this meeting right now. So,
Oh, really?
I'm not.
Yeah. Yes. There's only like 2 Ethiopians and 1 Nigerian out of the entire population. So
Okay.
we're rocking the meeting.
You're rocking the meeting. So for those of you in Ethiopia and in Nigeria, is there any interest in moving to Nairobi for a job?
I think it depends on the job.
Okay, for IBM. If IBM's research labs were willing to hire you. Oh, nice. I saw some big nods. All right. Okay, so I asked that because IBM has a research lab in Nairobi. They are trying to do something meaningful with it. I haven't been in touch with them for a while, but I have the guy on LinkedIn. I'm sure we can get in touch with him. So I can take that as an action item. And actually, I might just ask one of you to help me with that process, and maybe that will make it more feasible.
I will follow up with you. I will be the guy who is following up with you.
I love it, David. I appreciate that energy. So then, David, the task I'm giving you is get on my LinkedIn, figure out, so actually all of you, learn, make sure you have a LinkedIn, number 1. Then number 2, on your LinkedIn, I'm not sure, Ken, about that. I don't know what Strathmore is. On your LinkedIn, figure out if you can, how to search other people's contacts. It's not obvious. It's sort of tricky to figure this out, but there's a way for you to actually search other people's contacts. And this, talk about data. Whenever I want to get some like connection with somebody, I often will look at the people who I've talked to recently. So like say, for example, if you were somebody I knew who was a mentor, if you were influential to me and you had a big network that I wanted to connect to, actually Yabi is a good example of this maybe. I don't know if Yabi has a LinkedIn. I'm a good example of this.
Yes.
Yabi has LinkedIn. So I would go on
Yeah.
Yabi's LinkedIn and I would figure out how to do this. And then I would search for data science manager. I would search for, people he knows in my country. I would search for software companies. I would search for consulting firms. I would search for nonprofits. So I would search for different places that might be willing to hire data scientists, different individuals that are working at a company that might be willing to hire data scientists. And I would then go and look at these individual people. And I would be aiming for like a list of like 4 or 5 people. I'm going to aim for 10, and then I'm going to shorten my list of 10 down to the best 4 or 5. And when I have 4 or 5 people that I think might be able to help me, maybe I found that, I found somebody on Yabi's profile, and then I found that that person works at IBM. And then I saw that IBM has a job posting for a data scientist, right? So I'm doing a lot of research before I ask Yabi anything. Then I reach out to Yabi and say, Yabi, I noticed there's 2 or 3 or 4 people that you are connected to on LinkedIn. Do you know them well enough to make an introduction, right? So he might not know them that well. And I always assume that. And I don't want to ask too many people at once. So I want to ask just a couple. And depending on my relationship, because Yabi works on 10 Academy, I can actually send him a list of 15 or 20, right? But if it's somebody I haven't talked to in a while, I might just send like 1 or 2. I'm really excited about this person. Here's what I'm doing. Da, da, da. Get them to remember who I am, connect with them, and then send them that. If it's somebody that I've talked to recently, I might send them 3 or 4. And to Kevin's point, I'm going to Murphy Jitsu all of this. That's right. And you can almost hear me Murphy Jitsuing as I talk. That's right. That's right. There's a lot there you can do with that. But David, your assignment is to do that on my profile. Go and find who I know in IBM that is in Africa right now. And who's worked in Africa in the past as well. Look for anyone who's also worked anywhere in Africa. Probably it's all going to be in Nairobi because I know they have the biggest labs down there. But just check for everybody. Oh, yeah, my LinkedIn name. See, there you go. John right there is Murphy Jitsuing. David, you got to Murphy Jitsu. You got to Murphy Jitsu this. Okay, great. So we'll do a session on actually chasing down leads. So we'll go ahead and chase leads. Well, at least there are a few ideas for sessions. We'll see how it evolves. The junior thing. I want to come back to something important about all of you being young data scientists. I want to make it clear, no one is hiring you because you're a good data scientist. It might be a weird thing to hear, but I want to be really clear. No one is hiring you because you're a good data scientist. The reason they're going to hire you is because you have potential. You cannot come out of school. You cannot come into your first job as good. It's just not feasible. It's not realistic. So no one's hiring you because you're already good. They're hiring you because you have potential. So what does it mean to have potential? Well, it means you're probably good at some things, right? You have to be good at least some things. You're not good at everything, but you're hopefully good at some things. Hopefully your technical skills are good and you can demonstrate that. And I really hope you're focusing when you're with Yabi and you're working on these challenges well, because that's going to be important. They want to see that you got your technical skills down. It means that you can relate to them. You can have this conversation with them. If they can connect with you, then there's potential in this relationship, which means that you have potential to work with them, right? So you need to be able to build a connection. And then you're curious. You're curious, you're open-minded. You don't walk into the interview with any answers. If you walk into the interview and they smell arrogance, you're done. Don't come in with any bit of arrogance. You want to be confident because that demonstrates you believe in yourself. But you need to make sure you're not crossing over into arrogance. If you come in arrogant, there's no reason to hire you. All right. So that being said, if you do those things, you'll probably have this mindset of, okay, I need to see how I can help, and I have to learn from who's around me to figure out how I can help. And that becomes sort of the focus. How can I serve? How can I support? How can I add value? If that is your guiding light when you are in the company, you will immediately be supportive. I was talking to somebody, I can't remember if it was part of 10 Academy or if it was somewhere else, but they were talking about either getting their master's or going through a program like this. And they were saying that they were trying to explain to their mother what they were doing. And their mother was like, oh, you're just going to get a fancy title and then you're going to get someone coffee. And they're like, no, it's not going to be like that, Mom. And for me, that's a wrong way of thinking about it. Hell, I won't get you coffee. Until I know I'm adding more value than the coffee I'm getting you coffee. You know, I'm going to add some value the minute I show up, right? That is my goal. I'm going to figure out how to add value. One of the ways data scientists go wrong a lot, and you've heard me say this a lot, is they focus on building really sophisticated models. They focus on doing really interesting, intelligent analytics. They want to prove how smart they are. Don't worry about it. You will prove you're smart if you add value. Show up and figure out how to add value as quick as you can. Stephanie doing that little addition right there on which questions people had voted for, huge value for me. I'm going to go to Stephanie. If we were working together, I'm going to Stephanie, right? That was huge value to me. So you want to add value. That's how you get that trust that you're actually able to be someone they can work with, right? That's your guiding light. Any other questions on that? Who asked that? Let's go back to who asked that. Oh, Stephanie, that was you. Do you feel complete on that question? Do you have any other thoughts or questions on it? Feel good? Okay. Let's see. What else did, oh, okay. Oh, wow, I can see I'm losing steam. I'm gonna have to wrap up at some point. Does anyone else have any other questions? There's one more question I'm seeing in here. How do you handle office politics? And then if you...
I have another one.
Go for it, David. What's...
You muted?
Go for it, David. Thanks. What's your question?
Okay, my question is this. Well, I'm speaking from my side. Is I always want to learn, and I really yearn to get into a company that will build me to grow more in this data science field. And so I have heard from some people's experiences, they get to work because they are just new infants to the company. They are given work like data cleaning, just mere work, because they are not trusted to do the bigger part of data science, making, you see, the modeling part. So, and I want to learn, and getting to learn, one way is getting exposed to this big project. So
yeah.
How can you go about it?
Great question. Great question. Okay, I want to say two things first. So the first is that when we talk about the bigger part, right, use the word bigger, and I don't think that's exactly what you meant, but I want to emphasize something important here. When we talk about like how data science work actually gets done, the modeling part is not the bigger part, it's the sexier part. It's the part we all think is cool and fun and we really want to work on. The cleaning part, the data cleaning part is, yeah, like as Ken's saying, it's hard. It's also the majority of the work. The majority of the hours that will be spent on any project will be the data cleaning. That is data science. When I talk about data collection and doing surveys and stuff, if you do your data science, if you do your surveying correctly, if you get your data sources correctly, then your data cleaning can be simpler and easier. But getting the data and getting it into a format that analysis or a model can be built on it, that is the majority of the work. So don't think of the bigger part as the modeling. The bigger part is actually getting the data. When you get good relationships, you can get data from different parts of the organization. If you can build relationships outside of your organization in the nonprofit world, that's really important. That's how you're going to get a lot of the data if you're in the nonprofit or social sector. And that's a lot of relationship building there. the data cleaning part also, if you build good processes, good systems, the way the data gets put into your system to begin with will improve the quality and cleanliness of the data. So a lot of companies have really bad use of their software systems. And as a data scientist, I got hired as a data scientist in many places. And again, I'm adding value. So my number one, when I walked in, the first thing I did was to help them improve their business processes that were unrelated to data science. Because I knew I would not get good data unless they had good process. And so I actually focused on that. And people loved it. Actually, I had a lot of problems at that particular company. And this was probably what saved me. They loved me because I did this project. So I really encourage you, don't think of the cleaning as dirty work. Don't think of it as bad work. A lot of people think it's less sexy, but I'm going to tell you something about sexiness. If you fall in love with somebody, doesn't matter who else thinks it's sexy. All right. There's a lot of beautiful things to do with data science and data cleaning and business processes. So I really encourage you to really think about that is actually a really great part of the work. Yeah, when the data is unstructured, Ken, you can often think like, what's wrong with this? One of the things you can do, by the way, with unstructured data, though, so now let me give you the second thought. Second thought is side projects. I have never worked at a company and not had side projects. I always have side projects in the business. I also sometimes have side projects outside of the company, but I always take side projects in the business. There's a job my boss gives me. There's a job my resume says I'm supposed to have. And then there's the work I'm really excited about. And I make sure to do both, right? Now, do the job you're given, do that first. Don't let it slack. Don't let anyone question you that you're doing your job. If they question you on that, your side projects are shot, right? No one's gonna let you do a side project. But if you do your job, and then you have these little side projects that are helping the business, but more than just helping the business, the reason you want to do them is because you love that project, you're excited about the project, you'll have a good time. And if the projects, I've had side projects go well to the point that this is why I met the CEO of IBM. My side projects went well so many times that I just keep getting pulled into new meetings, into new conversations. I get elevated and people pull me up the chain. They pull me up the ladder. Idris is working on this interesting thing. You care about this? You should talk to him, right? That's constantly what would happen, right? And I'm out there hustling because I care about my side project. I'm excited about it. So I'm out there trying to network with people, meet people, get my project going, right? So side projects are the answer to that. When you're just getting started, don't create your own projects. Your side projects should be helping someone else. Those are your first side projects. They help you understand the business. So your first side projects are, okay, my job is to do the data modeling. Let me make sure I have a timeline. Let me make sure my team is comfortable with my timeline. Let me make sure the team trusts me that I'm following the timeline. So let me make sure everyone trusts me to do my job. Once they trust me, hey, everything's going well on my work. By the way, I would love to just see your model. I'm curious about it. Can I learn from you? My side project is learning from you, right? And then if I can evolve that project, if I can say, hey, I'm sort of curious why you did this way, because I have an idea, right? But I'm not gonna say because I have an idea until they explain. I'm wondering why you didn't do it this other way, right? So again, same way as when we talk to the boss, you wanna softly introduce your own ideas, right? And people will go, oh, hey, this person's smart. That's an interesting idea. Ken, I didn't think about that. I like that idea. Tell me more. Or, Ken, that's an interesting idea, but like, I don't have the time for it. Oh, okay, that's cool. Would you be okay with me trying it on my own and just like showing you what I end up doing just for my learning? I don't, I know you've got this whole thing, you're doing it, but just so I can learn, can I try it? Oh, hey, here's what I came up with. What do you think about it, right? You got to be really soft on how you introduce these things and keep that humility, because chances are that you don't have any idea what you're doing. That's probably more likely going to be the truth than not, right? But every once in a while, if you do this enough times, every once in a while, someone will look at you and they'll go, Shagun, how did you come up with this? This is brilliant. You should work on this. In fact, I'm going to take this on and you join me on this, right? Now let's talk to your boss about getting you to work on this, right? So like that stuff happens. But David, many side projects. But you can only do it once you've established your core work. So the goal is you get into work, and as fast as you can, you take what is supposed to be 100% of your work and you make it 60% of your time. Get good at it, be very good, be very fast at doing your job, be thorough, don't mess up, because if you mess up, you'll get more work. People will come and they'll start watching you. This is how you get perfection. This is how your bosses build the habit of being perfectionists. They watch their employees mess up all the time. So don't mess up. Be very, very careful and very thorough. And then build automation. If you can automate your work as fast as you can, automate your work. If you can automate your work, then you can make it less and less, right? So you want to be really smart about how you take your work. That is your first side project. When you get started, that's your very first side project. Your first side project is taking your work and just shrinking it, making it as small as your time as it can be. Ideally, you get it down to like 60% of your time. And the remaining, you work on the stuff that you are excited about, that matters. And also, all your side projects, make sure you find stuff that matters to the company. Because if it doesn't matter at all to the company, it'll get shot. Once it gets enough attention, it'll just get shot. So make sure it matters to the company, and obviously it's something you're interested in. Does that answer that question, David?
Sure, it does. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been great. I mean, I salute you.
All right, good. Let's see, what was the other thought? Okay, does anyone else have any questions on this? And then I want to actually go back to something else that came up as we were talking. Okay, Rahel had mentioned that when people are thinking about data science, they often, or even data, they often want to ignore the data because they don't want to believe that the world is predictable. And there's something really interesting to me about this. There's a lot of people get into wanting to not look at data for there's like two major reasons that come to my mind right now when I think about why people don't want to look at analytics. Actually, I'm going to say three. One is that they trust their own intuition. And we talked a little bit about this, so I won't talk too much about it today. But they trust their own intuition and they don't want to hear from you. They really just don't want to hear what you have to say. The second is they feel hopeless. They're too in pain to think about the future. It just is too hopeless for them. They really cannot think about it. When you think about political situations, this is often what ends up happening. A lot of people just want to ignore politics because it is such a hopeless situation, right? And then the third is they're embarrassed. They feel like they don't understand math, they don't understand science, and they feel embarrassed. And they don't want to be humiliated, right? So now if you're talking to somebody who feels hopeless versus somebody who feels this confidence in their own situation, so very different kinds of people to talk to, right? So you want to really connect with why people are not interested in engaging with the data, right? Why are they not interested in engaging with your analysis? So be careful to not just say they're not interested and that's it. They're just not going to work with me. Try to understand them, right? The empathy piece comes back to that. So can anyone think of somebody who they know who feels too hopeless to engage with data? I would love for you all to give me an example.
What if I say someone who has had some frustrations with data, as in someone put trust in the data and thought it will bring right predictions and it went AY. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think that's similar. Yeah, go for that. Give us an example. I would love for you to give me an example of an individual, like who they are, someone in your life or somebody that you know, not Intent Academy, who has expressed their either a sense of hopelessness or, as David said, a frustration that they are not able to use the data the way they wanted to. So not Intent Academy.
I can give an example from back in my university. The finalists, we always have them do projects and present. So maybe someone just goes to friends from other universities, or those students who have come before him, and sees how they did the project and how they presented. So that's like data. He's collecting data so that he can figure out a good way on how to present his projects. But when he gets to the lecturers, he is frustrated, as in he just collected the best of them and put together like stacking model and expects a good outcome, but it comes out bad. So yeah.
Okay, and then what are they unwilling to consider in the future? Where do they become unwilling to consider data in the future?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll let you pause. That's my question for you all. Someone tell me a story, and I wanted someone who hasn't spoken much yet. So I'm looking at John, looking at Ken, looking at Shagun. I would love somebody, and also all of you, I would love for you to consider this, but I would love to hear a story. Someone you know who has expressed their lack of willingness. Remember, we're not talking about capability here. We're talking about a lack of willingness. And even if someone's embarrassed and they think they don't have capability, they're not even willing to talk about it, right? So they have the capability to talk about it, but they're not willing to, right? So someone who's shown a lack of willingness to talk about data or science, or statistics, or the numbers, polls. I want a story. Tell me a story. Someone in your life.
Hello.
Hey, John, we can hear you. Go for it.
Okay. How about okay, we tend to find that most people, they don't believe actually the data concerning coronavirus.
John, I'm going to pause you.
Okay.
I want a single person.
You had a single person.
Yes. And by the way, when you're telling stories, if you can make it about a single person, it's much more personal. When you're in the company, if you're trying to tell a story about the salespeople in general, it's very different than saying, I talked to Kevin over here, and this is what Kevin told me. And then when I did the numbers matched Kevin's experience, right? So tell me about a single person. Tell me a story.
Okay, so I have friends when I go back to the villages. Okay, there's some of them who really don't believe the data concerning coronavirus.
One person. Give me your friend name. Give me a name.
A name. Okay, let's go with Robert.
Robert, great.
Yeah. Okay. So when you tell him anything concerning coronavirus, the data that the government keeps on giving us, of course, they have the data so that they can give us precautions. But for them, they just believe that this thing is not in existence, so they don't follow any rule.
So you're talking about Robert, so don't say them, and keep going.
Okay, I have several of them. That's why, okay, I'm trying to refer with them, but in this case, we are just using a single person.
Yeah, so now I'm just sort of coaching you on storytelling. But again, we talked about how important storytelling is to data science. So I think it's important that we do this with you, and I hope everyone is paying attention. So the way I would tell the story is, so when I talk to Robert behaves like this and this and this. And actually, it's not just Robert. It's all of my friends, right? So you want to start with the story, focus it on this particular experience, and then you can expand it to include more people.
Okay.
So tell me one more time.
Okay, so I come again with Robert. Okay, so I think I went back home sometimes back. So these are the friends back at home. So one of them is Robert. So when I was, of course, now by that time, the in thing was about coronavirus. So when I was talking to him about coronavirus, concerning how the new cases, the death, the fatalities. Okay, he said that that data is simply a lie. It's somehow a way of the government trying to get funds from other countries. So he doesn't believe anything that cometh from the government concerning coronavirus. Yes. That's okay.
That is a great story. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Yeah, that is great. Great. And now do the last part of it. How meaningful is this story? Help me tie this story back to an overall understanding of the world. So how many people, why do you think this applies to more than just Robert? And how many people do you think this applies to?
Okay, let me think.
Yeah. So while John is thinking, trust is another reason, or trust is sort of that intuition confidence piece for me. Do you trust the data source or do you trust something else, right? When you're in the company, if you mess up an analysis, say you're working for, a lot of you are probably going to get hired by a manager of data science who might have like 1 or 2 employees. And then the 2 or 3 of you would then work with the rest of the company on data science. That's most likely where you'll find yourself. That's where most of the data science jobs end up existing. And it's probably what you would get coming out of school right now. So say you get that kind of job. If you mess up an analysis and your boss catches it, then your boss is going to be a perfectionist, have perfectionist habits with you. If you mess up on an analysis and your boss doesn't catch your mistake, and then you send that analysis, say you're in finance and you do an analysis about marketing, and then you send the analysis to marketing, and then marketing catches the mistake, marketing won't trust you or your team anymore. Right? And now your boss is going to be very unhappy with you. Much worse for marketing to catch the mistake than your boss to catch the mistake. Because marketing catching the mistake makes you look bad and your boss look bad. So you just shot both of you in the foot. Right? So obviously, again, I'm emphasizing being very, very careful with your data cleanup, being very careful with your analysis. We'll talk about sanity checks later. I think you've already, have you already learned sanity checks in your analysis? Have you done this? Actually, I don't think we have time to talk about sanity checks when I think about it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about sanity checks in a moment. Let's first check in with John. John, are you ready?
Okay, let me try. So I will take the instance of, in the context of what I was telling, I was talking the story about, I was talking about. Okay, so I tend to think in Kenya, somehow, people don't trust whatever is coming from the government due to past experiences. So if we try to bring this analogy, let's say to workplace, probably due to past experiences, you might not trust whatever data is coming from within that organization. So you're being a little bit skeptical about data. Yes. Great.
And I love that. I love that. That's a good example. And I also see Shagun mentioning that this is what Nigeria is like. I will tell you that this is a common experience throughout the world. Very few people trust the governments today. And then also in corporations, if you work at a 1,000-person corporation like Stephanie did, you're going to have people in the corporate office, in the central office, who are making a lot of decisions. That's where the data scientists will sit. And then there are people who are store managers, who are running a retail store. There are salespeople who are doing sales. There are people who are sort of working on the ground, you know, factory workers. These are people who are sort of doing the work on a day-to-day basis, right? Same kind of relationship they have with corporate. They don't trust corporate. So how you do data science for them, how you create information. We were talking about media last time. How do you create media that they can use and they will trust? It's part of good data science. So those things to think about. Okay, I want to talk about sanity checks and then I want to wrap up, unless there's any more questions. how do people feel about that? Do we want to just end now? We can also just end now if people are tired. I'm feeling tired. I see a few people maybe feeling tired. No, I see the Stephanie's like, no, don't end ever.
To infinity and beyond.
What's that, Kevin? One more time.
To infinity and beyond.
Infinity and beyond. That's great. I think I've got about like 15 minutes of energy left in me. Does anyone want to end before 15 minutes? Okay, great. I'm seeing only not me's, so I'm gonna go ahead and we'll go for 15 more minutes. I'm gonna spend, so I wanna give you a chance to do the feedback survey. Keep that as a habit. I think it's a good habit. I'm assuming no one wants to do a breakout room after this. Do you want to do breakout rooms after I leave? David's like, he will always do a breakout room.
Supper time. It's supper time.
Oh, okay. Finally, David, I thought you would always do a breakout room. No, okay, good. So I'll wrap up with sanity checks. Does anyone have a guess on what I mean by sanity check?
From the word itself, sanity. Does the analysis make sense, or is it insane? Yeah.
Perfect. That's exactly what it is. Sanity check, you're just going to go back, you're going to look at your final analysis. It's really weird how often scientists, like published scientists in reputed journals, will publish something, and it is just like an insane claim. But so much of the way people use data and data science, they're trying to prove something special. They're trying to prove how crazy or great their analysis is. And they don't take the time to really question, does this make sense? So when we do a sanity check, we're not saying, if the data says something or my analysis says something surprising, I'm going to throw it away. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, if it says something surprising, I want to be really confident that it's a reasonable analysis. I want to go back and check the data. I'm going to check the analysis. Yes, Stephanie, how to lie with statistics. This is one of the ways, right? When we get a surprising result, if our response, our immediate reaction is, okay, I need to publish this, we're probably going to be lying to people about how great our statistics analysis is. What we really want to do, if we get a result that seems crazy, is we want to go and we want to look at the data and check, was there an error with the data collection? Do I have a bunch of nulls? If I have a bunch of nulls, I know something's wrong. Can I exclude those nulls? If I exclude those nulls, am I skewing the analysis, right? So who's missing from my analysis? Oh yeah, this is great. This is how I get to my 7.6. So why did I score myself a 7.6 when I got an average of 9.9 on the last survey set? It was because of sanity check. I know I'm not perfect. There is no way in hell I'm perfect. I will never accept a 10. It's a very low chance I'll accept a 10. Now, if I did 100 hours of work to prepare for a session, and I went and I talked, like David said, I interviewed 20 different people who did the similar session, and I wrote a book about how to do a good session, and then I did the session and I got a 10, like maybe I'll accept it, right? But if I'm coming here and I know I'm doing less preparation than I do in places when I get paid, and in those places they don't give me 10 out of 10, I'm not as likely to accept a 10 out of 10 here, right? So I'm thinking, how is the data skewed, right? Well, one of the ways the data is skewed is that we all know I'm volunteering. So because we all know that, all of you are likely to be a lot kinder in your rating of me. So I know that now, right? So I'm not gonna go and yell off the rooftops. And actually I've been giving Arun, at the end of every session, I've been giving Arun what your scores are, what the overall score is. And so I told him my assessment is 7.6. Now he ignored it and he focused on the 9.9. I think mostly he wants me to stay motivated. I didn't bother correcting him, but I gave him both numbers, 9.9 and 7.6. So how do I get to the 7.6? About 14 people were on the session. Of the 14 people, I got about 10 survey responses. That means about 4 people didn't respond. 3 to 4 people didn't respond, right? So I assumed, to correct for that, I made an assumption, and I assumed those people would have given me a 2. And they just were too nice to put anything. Stephanie's put her eyebrow like, what? So like actually that 2, also I'm also assuming that all of you have skewed the data a little bit, right? You want to really communicate to me how much you want me to be here. So you're not answering the question of how good the session is, you're answering the question of how much you want me to be here. And the question I'm asking you allows for that. I'm asking you, would you show up if you're busy having to do something else? So I know that question allows for a little bit of a skew, right? So there's a few different skews. There's a bias because I'm missing the people who didn't show up. There's a bias because, or who didn't fill out the survey. There's a bias because I had shared, hey, there's some challenges around me doing this. And then there's a bias because the question itself allows for a bias, right? The question allows for a bias, the one you're answering that I'm using to measure myself. So for all of those, I'm just making a countervailing bias. I'm just going to try to balance the bias. Is it perfect? No. Do I have a perfect analysis? No. Does 7.6 seem about right to me? Honestly, it doesn't seem bad. It seems a little bit on the low side. I would wish for something above an 8. But that says to me that maybe I need to do more to get people to feel comfortable filling out the survey if they have a bad response. Having this conversation with you is an example of that, right? So, yeah, so a lot to think about when we think about how to do sanity checks, how to get qualitative analysis, or how to convert qualitative to quantitative. Comes back to that. And this is how you do a good analysis. The good analysis is not all built into the actual modeling. A lot of the good analysis is built into how do I even question the results I get? How do I prep myself to get good results? And generally, if you're in a company, you're going to be working on the same analysis over and over again, right? How much do our customers love our product? You're going to keep doing that every month. And you're going to keep trying to help the company figure out how it can improve. Even in a nonprofit, many times you'll be working on similar problems. How effective is the program we're running? Monthly basis, tell me how effective it is. For each dollar spent, how many lives are saved? How many years of life are saved for each dollar spent? Often the question we ask in the nonprofit world. Anything else I want to say on sanity checks? Oh, and the last thing I want to say on sanity checks, coming back to this idea of marketing versus finance. If you are in marketing and somebody else does an analysis, they send this analysis to you, and the number, like you are expecting the analysis to say that on an A/B test, version B of the advertisements is better than version A. You were expecting version B to be better than version A. And they give you analysis that says that version A is twice as good as version B. You are expecting version B to be good. They come back, they say version A is twice as good. What's the first thing you're going to do? Somebody who hasn't spoken much today, I'm looking, I think, at Shagun and Ken, Rahel as well. Feel free to jump in.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah. You're sitting in marketing. In the finance team, somebody and some other team does an analysis of 2 advertisements you're making. And they do an A/B analysis. They were analyzing which one is better, an A/B test. They're analyzing which one is better. And you're convinced that version B is better. But the person from this other team, their analysis says that version A is 2 times as good as version B. You have not done an analysis, but just your intuition is telling you that version B is better. And it's a very confident intuition. You're absolutely convinced. You're just looking at it. You're like, this advertisement is so much better. What is the first question you might ask? What's the first thing you want to do with that? And by the way, what I'm asking you, yeah, sorry, Ken, let me just give you one more thought here. What I'm asking you to do is think about how people are going to relate to you. This is a practice of empathy. How do they look at you when you give them an analysis, right? Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
If I'm coming from marketing, probably I'm biased to myself. So I don't want to listen to this guy.
Yeah.
But I would ask him like, how did you get to this conclusion? Just kindly explain to me.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
But I have my own biases. I know I'm pretty sure B is better. But if they show me, look, we actually ran the tests on some dummy users, and probably there were 190 of them liked A than B, I'll be more convinced. But if 60, probably out of 100, I'll be a bit not convinced.
Great, great, wonderful. Now, imagine if you say that to me, you asked me this question, how did I do the analysis? And I said, oh, I'm not sure. I ran a model. It's very sophisticated. It's very intelligent. I mean, the model shows, clearly the model shows. And then I show you a graph, and the graph just says, B is good, A is good, B is not good. And that's it. The graph says nothing else. It's just a bar chart.
I wouldn't follow that.
You wouldn't follow it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't trust me anymore.
Yeah.
That's right, Shagun. I'm not ready. That's right. I'm not ready to have the conversation. I'm not ready to talk to Ken if that's my attitude, right? So when we do our sanity checks, part of what the sanity check should be is how is the person I'm giving it to, how are they going to see this? Is it crazy from their perspective? And if you don't know, sometimes you don't have any idea how they're going to see this. You have no context. You have no intuition. You have no idea. Then you need to go and talk to somebody before you give it to the decision maker. You need to go and interview somebody who's lower in the organization. Go talk to an associate. This is my analysis. I did it a certain way, but honestly, I just don't know enough about the company to do my sanity check. And I would like your support in doing the sanity check. Does this seem based on your own intuition? Does this seem right? Let them tell you. You'll learn quite a lot. You'll learn about the causal model again, right? You'll understand what they know about how the operation works, how the business works. And then they might tell you why they're not sure. Ideally, they might even tell you why the last data scientist was fired. I've had this. I've actually been in companies where I was doing my sanity check and I was interviewing somebody and I was sharing them the analysis. And I was like, I'm not really sure what the attrition rate is on a usual basis. Attrition is how quickly people leave the company. So I was like, I don't know what the attrition rate is. And so, but the attrition rate is 23% on my analysis. I think that's high, but I actually don't know if that's high for your company. How do you feel about this? And the person was like, wow, I'm really impressed you're asking me because the previous data scientists we fired because they couldn't explain to us how they were getting the same number, but they got the same number. So I mean, just showing up with the right question, right? And the right stance of humility, changes the way you're received dramatically, right? So the sanity check can include you and somebody else potentially, depending on the relationships, depending on how open-minded people are. Some people might actually not want you to have that kind of openness and curiosity. They actually want you to be the smart person, and that's not the person you get your sanity check with. You get the sanity check with the person who understands that there's value in data and has their own intuition. That's who you want the sanity check with. And then you want to be able to actually open up the data. So to Ken's point, 190 people. Can you pull up the names? I want to have the report of the 190 people. I want to have information about them. Information pertinent to the analysis. If I'm doing a customer analysis, what country are they in? What city are they in? Anything we track about customers that is useful or meaningful for this person to think about. What demographics, how much do they spend with us? Are they a lifetime customer? Any kind of things that are interesting to the marketing team, I want to have that in my report. So I have a backup report to explain this analysis that might be surprising. That's the level of preparation you want to walk in with. Now, if you don't have that, if you don't have time for that, you don't have that, the data's not good enough for that, you give them what you have and you do your estimate. How long will it take to get that? So you have that answer when you walk in. So Ken, I have some information about the customers. Here's how I did the analysis. I have some information about the customers. By the way, I even have a slide to explain my analysis because you're not a technical person. I'm not trying to make you a technical person. So I have the simplistic slide, right? That has this flow chart that explains why my analysis makes sense. And if you tell me it doesn't make sense to you, good. I'm going to throw out my analysis. I'm going to make an analysis that makes sense to you because you're my client. In this situation, we work for the same company, but you're my client. That's the way I treat it. You're like a customer to me, right? If you're not willing to buy my analysis, I don't have a job, right? So now that, because you're my client, I'm going to try to do this from a standpoint of what do you want, my client, right? And so I'm doing it from that standpoint, and therefore, does this work for you? If it works for you, if the way I did my analysis works for you, great. Now I'm going to explain to you the results. I'm going to dive into, the details. I got the 190 customer names, but all I have are their names and their email addresses, unfortunately. So, one thing I could do, Ken, if it's helpful for you, I think in some of our systems, we might have more information, but I don't have access to those systems right now. So if you're open to that, if you give me 3 weeks, I can get back to you on more information about these people. Would that be helpful? Should I work on that, right? And if you think that'd be helpful, I'll have to just ask my boss if I can make time to work on that. But let me know if you based on what my schedule is, I think I could work on that. What do you think about that, Ken?
That's better. I'll be more inclined to hold my thoughts first and wait for what you have to say. Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's from my perspective, actually. I don't know. In real life, probably it's not like that.
It depends, right? Each person's going to be different, but this approach is going to give you a lot of opportunity. I've had a lot of internal clients who would tell me, no, I need it now. I need the analysis now. Thank you very much. Don't work on anything else. Whatever you've got is fine. I've got to make a decision today, right? So that'll happen. But even in that situation, there's still more of a relationship built that I've offered something. I've given an offering, right? If I say I've got nothing for you, I look like an idiot, right? They don't want to come back to me. This is the analysis. Let me prove to you. Let me explain to you how regression models work. Let me explain to you why I use logarithmic regression instead of a linear regression. I don't know what those words are. Now I'm just throwing words around and they think I'm an idiot and an asshole. So I don't want to do any of that, right? I want to sort of stay in relationship with them, stay in connection with them. Okay. And then I'm buying myself time as well. So a lot more we can say here. When I say buying myself time, I'm making it clear what it costs in order for me to deliver what they want. A big part of data science is creating an appetite for data science. So when we talk about having influence and trust, this is so central and core to the work. You're trying to build an appetite. You're trying to get people to desire you as an analyst and to desire your analyses. You want them to want data. You want them to want reports. You want them to want the more sophisticated analysis later on. You want to start with the simpler stuff first. You want to really get that desire built up in the organization. For you, when you're starting early on, you're not going to be in charge of building that, most likely. Most likely your manager is going to be in charge of that. But you should understand that that's a big part of the work. So if you can support that by having these smart conversations where in the conversation you're being very intelligent and you're saying something like, I can get back to you on that if I have a little bit of time. Don't ask for too much time because, as Ken pointed out and as we started talking about, if you ask for too much time, people are like, it takes forever for these guys. you know, 3 months to get a report. Why would I want that? Forget it, you know? So you got to sort of balance it. Ask for enough, and don't offer if it's gonna take you 3 months to do something and you know they want it within 2 weeks. Just don't offer, because that'll frustrate them. Or just let them know. I know it would take 3 months, and I think that you want this in 2 weeks. Is that right? So just get clear. You know, if you think they are willing to wait 3 weeks, then just offer. So things to think about. But chances are a lot of the stuff your boss is going to be in charge of. So no matter what you're saying, you're really usually saying, let me check with my boss. Here's what I think, but let me check with my boss and get back to you. I just shared a lot of information, and we went long today, so I have no idea how much of this is going to sink in. I encourage you all to check out this recording afterwards. Just remind yourself of the stuff. I appreciate you listening for this long and engaging with me for this long. It's been really interactive. It's been good. So David's got homework. Let's see. What's the homework for next time for all of you? So yeah, we need to switch gears now. From here onwards, we're just doing job hunting. So that's my goal. So what I'd like you all to do is I would like you to write 2 lists. 2 lists you're going to be writing. The first list is a list of the skills that are important to get a job. These include the skills you need to have that they want to see. You know, you're a good data scientist kind of skills, but also the skills involved in the job hiring process, right? So I called it sales before. I want you to name the specific kind of skills. There's many, many different kinds of skills. So when I think of sales is built up of many different kinds of skills, right? So I want you to write a list of all the skills. The second thing I want you to do is take your list, and I'm going to make a master sheet of skills. So first I want you to do it separately. Don't look at the master sheet, do it separately. And then you're going to combine your list with the master list. All right. So any skills you've written that someone else has already put in the master list, don't repeat them. Maybe just put a star by them, just so we all know that 2 people had the same thing. And we're going to get a master list. Then whenever you do the second question, the second assessment, whatever's on the master list, you use that. If nothing's on the master list, you use your own list. For each skill you've named, on a scale of 1 to 10, how skillful are you at this skill? 10 means that you could write a book about the skill. 7 means that you can teach people about it in person. 5 means that you can do it without help. 3 means that you can do it, and let me change that. 5 is that you can coach other people. So teaching and coaching are pretty different. If you don't know the difference, that's okay. But 5 is that you can coach people. 3 is that you can do it without supervision. But you might struggle with priorities, like where to focus. And then 1 is that you need somebody to guide you to do it. And like you might want guidance at any of these levels, no matter how skillful you are, but 1 is that you really can't do it at all without guidance. So I want you to go through using that sort of rating system. So again, you see how I bring quantitative, right, into a very qualitative thing. People love to say they're good at this, they're good at that. Forget that. Give me a number on this scale. That's how you get quantitative. So yeah, I want you to go through for each skill, rate yourself. How good are you? And rate yourself, how good do you think you need to be in order to get the job you want? So 2 ratings. How good are you? How good, and then number 1, how good are you? 2, how good do you need to be to get the job you want? And this you can keep private. I encourage you to share it, but you don't, it's not a request that you do, because I know that this can be a very personal thing. And then next week, we'll talk about which skills we can focus on as a group that are going to be most valuable. So anywhere where you see the biggest gap is where I'm going to encourage you to focus. Right? Cool. Any questions about this?
The difference between coaching and teaching.
Sure. If I give a lecture about something, it's because I have extensive knowledge to pull from. For me, this is very similar to a lecture format as well. When I'm doing coaching, it's one-on-one. So there's a lot more feedback. So I can try something with you. You can go and try it. Did it work? It didn't work. You came back. You told me it didn't work, and we can adjust. But as a coach, a big part of my work is just sort of supporting you emotionally, supporting you as an individual. And there's a lot of feedback loops and a lot of time spent. Teaching, I'm spending very, very little time with you. You know, I try to bring a little bit of coaching into this kind of environment, but with each of you, I have so little context on your personal situation. You're not getting emotional support from me. It's very hard for me to actually know your particular situation and to speak directly to your situation. So I'm talking to these abstract principles that I know because I've done so much of this. Stephanie with the flattery, man. So I want you all to know, Stephanie's gonna get, when we talk about the skill of connecting with people, Stephanie's got like a 10 out of 10, which is like making people feel good about themselves. That's good. Yeah, oh man. Yeah, I have a lot of, I also teach people how to teach, so that's a whole different session. So Shagun, I hope you have some skills that you will have 10 out of 10 as well. Part of this exercise is to focus on where you're good and where you're not good. So none of it's cheating, right? By the way, it should be that all of us are perfect. But that's just not how it is. All right. So yeah, I'm excited to see the results from this thing. Feel free to share your answers with me. For the master sheet, let's do the master sheet in the notes document we've been using consistently. So I'm gonna call it, do I wanna do a separate document? Does anyone have an opinion? Should we do a separate document, or should we keep it all in the same place?
I think a separate document is better to avoid cluttering.
Okay, great. Anyone disagree with that? All right, cool. I'll make a separate document. I'll put a link in the master sheet. And I see that no one has the master sheet open right now. Do you all know how to get to it?
Wait, what master sheet?
The document I'm putting all the notes on. And today we didn't have anyone taking notes. Could somebody do me a favor and just type up what I said the homework was? Type it into the Google document here, our master document. Oh man, I can't believe how long. I have so much fun talking to you all that I know I need to go, but I'm just like, I'm still here. I'm still here. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see. So if someone can type up the homework for me, I'll just make sure that it's clear and make any corrections that need to be made. Thank you, whoever's doing that. Appreciate that. And then let's see, the other thought, oh, and then I'll make a master sheet right now. And then while everyone else is waiting, why don't we start moving into doing the feedback survey? So I'm just gonna put the survey link in the chat. And I'll also put the link in the Google Doc. So from now on, you can just use that. Great. And I want you to name at least 10 skills. So that'll give you a sense of like how specific I want these skills to be. So if you said something general, like good at talking, not specific enough. And then one other homework I will give you. I want you to read an article I've written a while ago on how to level up your empathy. And I think I may have posted this before, but I'm gonna sort of assign it since we've had a meaningful conversation around why empathy is important. So, does anyone have any questions around the homework? Any confusion on what the homework is? Okay, I'm assuming you're all good. And I'm assuming you all are responding to the survey, feedback survey. So far, we've got 3 responses. So we'll probably wait for about 5 or 6 more before starting to wrap this up.